He is a licensed private investigator for Canada, but he's also an author and a syndicated blogger and host of Freedom Friday for many, many years with me, co-host with me. So, Mike, it's good to have you here on the show with us. And it looks like you and I just got back from Dallas at a prophecy conference. It looks like you and I will be headed out, along with Brandon Big B and Zev Parat from Israel, to Long Island, New York at that prophecy conference here coming up in August.
Yeah, that's a great segue, Carl, because I started thinking earlier today it may be time to do a rewrite on Final Warning, by the way. I'm a little bit torn on what the title should be. It should either be like Final Warning Part 2, which is French for two.
Yeah,
I'm a polyglot. Carl. I understand the intricacies of language, you know.
Yes.
And I'm also toying with the idea of doing the title Final Warning. Duh. You know?
Final Warning. Duh. That's good. That's good.
You know,
that's good.
Well,
that was my third book. Yeah.
That was your third book?
I think it was, yeah. Magic Man, the Rabbi That Found Messiah, Final Warning. Yeah, it was the third book. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, as you know, the word "duh" is used to comment on a statement perceived as obvious, right? Obvious.
Mm-hmm. Duh.
And so we go to this article from Yahoo News this week. Okay, I'm going to read it to you in English, and then because I'm a polyglot, I will translate it into Ukrainian. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
The title goes, "Going Home to Chernobyl, Ghost Town, 32 years on." Okay, Natalie Shevchuk gazes at the peeling walls inside her old flat, and tears run down her cheeks. 32 years after the Chernobyl disaster, she's finally revisiting her childhood home in the ghost town of Pripyat. You know all about Pripyat.
I know about all of that. It's in Final Warning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and then a couple of paragraphs later, now 50, Shevchuk's world was ripped apart on April 26, 1986, when the reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded in the Soviet Ukraine, spewing a cloud of radioactive material across several European countries. By the way, they took readings from that explosion everywhere on this oblate spheroid we call planet Earth.
Yes, everywhere. It went everywhere. It wasn't just several European countries. In fact, the thyroid cancer rates in the United States, especially along the East Coast, went through the roof. Well, excuse me, I'm not going to say through the roof. It spiked because of the Chernobyl disaster. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Go ahead.
Now, if we translate, okay, I'm going to spare your audience here because I know probably none of them actually would understand Ukrainian if I spoke it. But I'm just going to translate one word in what I just read to you to Ukrainian. Are you ready?
Yeah. Okay,
the title would read, if you were in Ukraine, it's not the Ukraine, by the way, it's just Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't say the Canada, right? You say Mike Shoesmith from Canada, right? It's just Ukraine. Going home to Wormwood Ghost Town, 32 years on, Natalie Shevchuk gazes at the peeling walls inside her old flat, and tears run down her cheeks. 32 years after the Wormwood disaster, she is finally revisiting her childhood home. Now 50, her world was ripped apart April 26, 1986, when a reactor at the Wormwood nuclear power plant, etc., etc. What is Mike Shoesmith talking about here? Well, you know, you go all over all of this in Final Warning, which, by the way, it is still my favorite book that you've ever written. I use it for, for reaching the lost with the truth. I mean, people's eyes are open when they see that this event that happened 30 years ago, plus, is mentioned in the Bible by name.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Chernobyl is the Ukrainian name for mugwort, which is a species of Artemisia, which is just common wormwood. If you're sitting there in Russia or Ukraine and you're reading this article translated into Ukrainian or Russian, it will say exactly what I said it says.
Yes.
Going home to Wormwood Ghost Town, 32 years on.
And you know, and the Ukrainian and the various what am I trying to say? The variances of the Russian language and the Ukrainian language, the Bilo-Russian languages. That word, you're right. In some of those translations, it says Chernobyl, and I get that's how we say it in English. I don't know exactly how you'd pronounce it with the Russian, inflection and accent.
Right.
But also some of the translations will say Polyn, Polyn, and they'll say, and people will say, well, see, it doesn't say Chernobyl, it says Polyn. But anybody who speaks Ukrainian knows that is a direct synonym for Chernobyl. The two words mean the same thing. We have words in the English language like that, where you can use a word and there's another word that means the exact same thing. So, but they translate, all the English translations translate that to wormwood. And I don't want to steal your thunder, because you're getting ready to tell the audience where that is found in the Bible and what the significance is. But I also want our audience to know all of this is documented in Final Warning, that this is not just Mike and Carl on the radio talking about this, trying to be sensational. There were Ukrainian ambassadors to the United Nations who, when this disaster happened, they actually quoted that passage of Scripture and said, this is that.
Well, check this out. Now, the word Chernobyl is actually a Russian distortion of the original Ukrainian word, and it is a synonym for Polyn. And the word Polyn simply means a plant that makes water taste very bitter.
Yeah.
I'm not getting this from a Christian website. This is research that I've done on secular websites, and that's what it means. And they're not talking about Bible prophecy and the Chernobyl disaster.
I know.
They're just saying that the word Chernobyl is a Russian distortion of the original Ukrainian word, which is a synonym for Polyn, and it means this plant that makes water taste very bitter.
I know.
Isn't that absolutely amazing? Because the prophecy states, well, let's go over that for a second. The third angel sounded his trumpet. By the way, can I just say that word for trumpet there in Revelation 8, okay, the trumpets there they're written in Koine Greek. Koine Greek is the original language of the New Testament, folks. That's what it was originally written. It wasn't written in Elizabethan English.
Right.
Okay,
right.
All right. And what are the trumpets in Koine Greek? Well, there are. I can't pronounce the actual Greek word, but in English we would pronounce it as salpingos or salpinks. Okay. Uh-huh. What was a salpingo or a salpinks? This was a straight, narrow bronze tube with a mouthpiece of bone and a bell on it. That's what a salpinx was, or salpingos. They don't even resemble anything in modern trumpet building today. Fashioning of trumpets don't resemble anything like that. That's what the word in Koine Greek was for trumpet. It was this salpingo, right? Mm-hmm. This salpingo, which, even John, the Revelator, was shown this trumpet, and he wrote it out as a salpingo. That's the language he used, which is a straight, narrow bronze tube with a mouthpiece of bone and a bell. Okay, even he was pointing out to Mike and Carl and everybody else that's alive today that this is not a shofar we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. These trumpets are not shofars. What trumpets do they blow during the Feast of Trumpets, Carl?
The shofar.
They blow shofars. Mm-hmm. That's right. This is completely unrelated to the Feast of Trumpets, folks. And I know that the audience probably knows where I'm going with this next. But we're going to talk about this talk of April 23rd and September and all this stuff after the break. But that's why I say that perhaps consider naming. I know you're busy. You've got several book projects on the go. Maybe I should just rewrite it for you. Maybe the Final Warning. Duh.
We'll tell the people. Go ahead. You started to read that prophecy. Read it. It's from Revelation chapter 8, verse 10 and 11. Read that prophecy, because all of the background you gave concerning Chernobyl and Polyn and turning water bitter, and it translates to wormwood. Now read the prophecy, brother.
The third angel sounded his solpingo, or I don't have that word in front of me anymore, not a shofar, and a great star, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky on a third. I don't even have the time to get into that awesome teaching you do on what that phraseology means, 1/3 and 1/2 and all that. Mm-hmm. Biblical fractions. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've done an amazing amount of research on all this stuff. The name of the star is Chernobyl. Okay, that's what the prophecy says, folks. It says wormwood, but it's Chernobyl in Ukrainian and Russian. A third of the waters turned bitter, just like what the word Chernobyl or Polyn means. And many people died from the waters that had become bitter. Many people. I mean, that's what it says. And that's why I say final warning, duh. And then we get into the fourth and fifth and sixth trumpets. It's amazing if you study this stuff, folks, you cannot help but come to the conclusion, especially after all these failed rapture dates. It's time to hit the reset button on your end-time eschatological worldview and take a fresh look at this stuff. And read Carl Gallups' books, Final Warning primarily, and get a real education on where we are, instead of all this hypothetical speculation out there, naming, all this hyper date setting. There's a new date every year that comes up from some of these people. It's time to put a stop to that and get a real education on all this stuff here.
Well, and that's go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish. I thought you were finished.
And it talks about how it came down to earth and did all blazing like a torch and did this and that and this and that. Well, listen, the lid on Chernobyl weighed 1,000 tons. Do you know how many cheeseburgers that is? That's, Carl, I don't know if your audience is aware of this, but 1,000 tons is 2 million pounds. And this explosion blew the lid right off of this thing. And it came down and landed precariously half inside of the core, the reactor core, and then it caused a hydrogen explosion, and that hydrogen explosion is really what did the world in as far as all the death and destruction from this. The fallout went down into the underwater water aquifers and got into the drinking water, and women were drinking this, and then they were breastfeeding their children. Their children ended up getting sick from this. Yeah. This was a devastation that, you know what, it's uncommon for this to happen, Carl.
And it's still going on. We've got to take a break, man. We're way over.
Okay,
but it's still happening. As you pointed out, just the day before yesterday, there was a major article, Drudge was running it, about Chernobyl, the devastating effects that are going on today, 30-something years later. I read these reports probably every other month. There's some report about Chernobyl in the news still. Wormwood, Chernobyl, Polin, the pollution of the water, the air, the land, our bodies from that one thing that happened. It's absolutely amazing. Listen, we're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we'll talk about that and so much more. By the way, welcome, folks. We're 4 days the other side of April the 23rd. You know what that's about. We'll see you in just a moment. We've got about 6 or 7 or 8 more minutes, Mike. So anyway, welcome to 4 days the other side of April the 23rd.
Yes. April the 23rd. Yeah, I heard you mention that before the break. In fact, as bad as Chernobyl was, and in fact still is today, nuclear power generation is still the safest way of producing power. In fact, Chernobyl, or wormwood, is so rare, it's even more rare than the alignment of stars that happened on April the 23rd, by the way.
You had to throw that in. Yeah. Even though Revelation 12 has zero to do with predicting times of the rapture through the alignment of the constellations, nothing to do with that. People still insist on doing it, and they still get burned down every time they do it. But with no shame, they continue to do it anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what, I heard and listened to and read much of, you had some really excellent commentary on April 23rd and all of that. And but you know who else did was, surprisingly, the express.co.uk. I mean, usually they kind of poking their finger at us and jabbing us with this stuff, but they had on April 23rd, they had an excellent article on this, and they quoted some experts that I respect. In fact, they say the end of the world could be arriving sooner than we thought. As a new theory suggests we are now in the end times, could this shock prophecy be true? Will the rapture occur today? According to conspiracy theorists, codes in the Bible suggest the end of the world is imminent, and the earth will be destroyed today. One theory suggests, and this was actually published on the 23rd, one theory suggests the end times dates back to astrological constellations appearing on November 23rd.
It's just, this is an upside-down world we live in. Go ahead, though, Mike. Go ahead.
It is. And the express.co.uk, they quote Revelation 12 and so on. It's thought that Virgo is the woman from the passage. And they're also saying that the sun and the moon was in Virgo, as was Jupiter, which represents the Messiah. What? I never understood that angle. The Jupiter, the Greek god Jupiter, represents the Messiah. Anyway,
I think it's because it's usually in ancient days it was called the King Star or something like that, and so that's probably where they get that from. But anyway, go ahead, brother.
Right, and then they say what's different about this year was that another planetary alignment representing the line of the tribe of Judah will make this time the rapture. That was the clincher. That was the Bible lock here, Carl, was that the alignment of the line of the tribe of Judah will make this time the rapture.
Yeah.
I wasn't raptured, Carl, on the 23rd. You weren't. You're still here. I haven't heard. I've got lots of Christian friends. They're all still here. There was no rapture.
No, and we knew there wasn't going to be.
Yeah, this was all spread around by David Meade, as you know. He was quoted in Fox News, and he's quoted here in this article. But what the Express did was they went to a guy named Jonathan Sarfati. And I just love this guy. This guy, every time the evolutionists debate him, they get destroyed. He's a master chess player. And the guy's just absolutely amazing. And Sarfati says that the rarity of the formation has come into question with Jonathan Sarfati, suggesting that the phenomenon has occurred 4 times in the last millennium, and we're still here. Yeah. In an article titled, "Will the World End on April 23rd?" he said, as usual, with any astrology or Christian adaptations of it, one cherry-picks the stars that fit the desired conclusion. There's nothing to suggest that April 23rd is a momentous date for biblical prophecy, and Christians need to be careful about being drawn into such sensationalist claims. He ends it with this: we won't know the day or the hour, so we should be prepared at all times. Isn't that exactly what you and I have been saying all along?
For our entire ministry together. And I've been in the ministry 35 years. I've been saying that. You and I have been in the ministry together for a little over 10 years. We've been saying that. And let me just reiterate to the folks listening to our show. Mike and I do not set dates. I have never set dates. What we do say is we're living in the most prophetic time since the first coming of Jesus Christ, Mike Shoesmith. And that's the truth.
American Survival Wholesale is proud to sponsor this ministry and their efforts to shed light on the issues that face our nation. As a veteran and Christian-owned and operated company, we support the freedom to express these Christian principles. We all understand the importance of being prepared. After witnessing the devastation of Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and the wildfires that affected so many, please support this ministry by clicking on the link below and check out the amazing alt media package for our listeners. Plus, if you use the promo code PNN Radio, that's PNN Radio, you will receive free shipping, a savings of up to $200. Just click on the link below, but please do it today. Your support means so much to this channel.
The Satanists wanted to install their own tribute, a pagan idol, on the Capitol grounds, right next to the Ten Commandments.
Billions around the planet are witnessing a world in the grasp of sadistic spiritual darkness. This unholy alliance has infected our governments, our religious institutions, and our societies. The world appears to be unraveling. But can the evil behind these dark supernatural forces be defeated? Is everything playing out just as the Bible predicted it will in the final days? At last, you can know the answers to mankind's most urgent questions and learn your destiny among today's events in the new, unprecedented work taking the prophecy world by storm. Gods and Thrones, Nakash, Forgotten Prophecy, and the Return of the Elohim by best-selling author, former decorated law enforcement officer, and senior pastor Carl Gallups. This changes everything. Available now wherever fine books are sold.